things that we've been about since day one is partnering with great people and great organizations. A lot of great people on the team. One of the great people that we've reached out to, we're blessed to have with us today, Derek Wilburn. Some of you may have seen him. He went viral when he stood up at a District 49 school board meeting. And Derek, we're just so proud to have you here and be a part of this.
I am a sandwich veteran. So my father is a vet, and my son is a vet with active duty, and I'm that generation in the middle that didn't sign up and didn't serve. But my dad, my dad's still alive. He's 94 and a half. He'll be 95 in March, and he is the epitome of a veteran. United States Army, served in occupied Germany in 1945-46, 614th Armored Tank Destroyer Division. My dad graduated high school 17 in that would have been 42. Went straight to the Army recruiter's office and signed up in Commerce, Texas. Went through boot camp. So July, August boot camp in Texas. Being a black kid, low man on the totem pole in the Army to begin with, and being black on top of that, and being black and in the South on top of that, and being black and in the South and in Texas in July on top of all that. Survived boot camp, gets finished with boot camp, the Army finds out how old he is, kicks him out. He waits until his 18th birthday, goes right back to the recruiter's office, signs up and goes through all that stuff again, and then gets shipped out and deployed to Germany in mid-1945. I found all this out because my dad doesn't really talk about his service. It's just like a lot of World War II vets. I mean, a little bit nuggets here or there, but we never really talk much about it. He was a wheeled vehicle mechanic and had all kinds of accommodations. He had a marksmanship award. He had all kinds of patches. And I have his honorable discharge papers from Fort Hood in 1946, October of 1946. Just an incredible patriot who just loved this country and put the same in me and in my sister, that we're blessed to live in the United States of America. I am not a victim of the slave trade. I'm a beneficiary of the slave trade. Now, that's not saying that slavery was a good thing. Slavery wasn't a good thing. It was horrible. No man should own another man. But because my ancestors were brought here against their will, I was born in Illinois, educated in California, and now live a beautiful life in Colorado with an amazing family. And I'd rather be an lower class citizen of Colorado than a upper class citizen of Somalia any day. And apparently I'm not the only one. We've got representatives in Congress who chose this country over Somalia. And now we're here telling everybody what a horrible country this is. Well, you know what? Every international airport in the nation has one-way flights every day, but they're never on them. I want to talk to you for a few minutes about this concept of American exceptionalism, which is what all our veterans owe to service. American exceptionalism is one of the more misunderstood concepts in America today. In both liberal and conservative circles, people hear American exceptionalism and they think it's great, but don't really know what it is. They asked former President Obama about American exceptionalism. You might remember this when he was in office. And he said something along the lines of, yes, I believe in American exceptionalism. I'm sure if you were to ask the Greeks, they believe that Greece is exceptional. If you were to ask the French, they think that France is exceptional. And that's what he thought it meant, that we just think we're exceptional, which we are, but that's not what it is. Up until the founding of this nation, 1776, those who governed did so as a result of birthright, right? They simply came forth from the correct womb. There was no democratic processes. Nobody voted and put those people in power. Nobody established governments through consent of the governed. That's not how it worked. You had some form of supreme leader. You had the sultan, the king, the monarch, the emperor, the pharaoh, whatever they were called in different parts of the world. They simply came forth from the correct womb. They weren't there as a result of democratic processes. So I'm the king, you're the prince. When I die, you become the new king, your son is now the new prince. And it just gets handed down through the generations, right? And that's why you have King Edward VIII and Louis the Third, however high the Louis go, and Edward. That's why. It was just a matter of birthright. Then these radicals in the New World kicked the king out of here. And they said, you know what, a supreme leader, we don't need one of those. We can do this ourselves. And they wrote what I would argue are, without a shadow of a doubt, the second and third greatest documents ever written by the hands of men. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Number 2 and number 3 is not even close. And they said, you know what, we can govern ourselves. We don't need a king. We don't want a king. In fact, they asked George Washington, he said no. The world laughed. The world thought there's no way. These serfs, these peasants, these commoners, they don't have a drop of royalty in their blood. There is no way that the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, there is no way these people can govern themselves. It's never going to work. And now we sit here 260 years later, and not only has it worked, but that Constitution became the model for democratic governance the world over. But at that point in time, it had never been heard of. Nobody had never been experienced. Nobody even had thought of the possibility of not having a supreme ruler of some kind. And then in 1776, this nation became the exception to world history. And that is why men and women sign up to defend the Constitution of the United States, to defend our homeland, and to defend our interests around the globe. Because American exceptionalism was put on the line and codified in 1776. And you signed up to defend it, and defended it well, for probably some of you for all of your lives, or a good portion thereof. 60, 70 years somebody like Bentley Rayburn has served. 75 years he served in the Air Force. went in straight out of high school. The exception of governing history is the reason that people come to this country and flourish. So I did this school board thing that Rod introduced me about. Some of you saw it. And I simply got up and said, you know what, I'm not oppressed. I'm the descendant of slaves, and I'm not oppressed, and I'm not oppressed. But, you know, here's what people of color do. People of color in other countries, here's what they do. People of color in other countries fashion together homemade boats made out of bathtubs and old tires that they take off of a trash heap. Put that thing in the water, risk being eaten alive by 12-foot-long fish just to get here. Nobody does that in order to reach a land of oppression. Nobody. It's just not true. And then once they're here, so here's what I see. I've lived in San Francisco, I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in Colorado Springs, I've spent time in cities all over the country, as have you. Here's something you see in every city in America. Every city in America. You walk down the street, and they've got Junior out front sweeping the sidewalk. Open the door, mom is standing there at the hostess station seating people at the tables. Daughter is waiting on the tables. Dad's in the kitchen cooking the food. Grandpa's washing the dishes. And they're just here making it happen. And they're here making it happen because they can. They can't believe how little oppression there is in this country, let alone compared to where they just came from. And that's why they came. Because the defenders of freedom stood up for American exceptionalism. Some came home in a box. We honor them on a different day. That's Memorial Day. Some retired out after honorable service. Some took different paths in life. Some are still serving to this day. But they are serving to protect the truth of American exceptionalism, that we have the right to govern ourselves, that all men are created equal, one man, one vote, and preserving that and preserving our way of life and our system of governance, of self-governing. And that's why we're also terrified by the tyrannical practices we see now. Okay, we kicked that out of here a couple of 100 years ago, and some of us can see it creeping back in. And we need to remember and remind ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, and our compatriots, the truth about American exceptionalism, that we became an exception in world history, and we never, ever can afford to lose it. Because if we do, we go right back where we were. We don't call him the king, the sultan, the pharaoh, the monarch. We call him the president, But if they can just stroke a pen and determine how we're going to live our lives, we're no longer any more exceptional than we were in 1772. But we now live post-1776, and that is what Americans veterans fought and fight to protect every day.